The sun had not yet touched the horizon when Olivia heard her father's voice through the thin cabin wall. "She's 17 now, and the doctor said she won't bear children. $5 is fair." The words landed like stones in her stomach. She pressed her palm against the rough wood, listening to the stranger's reply. "I reckon I can make use of her around the place. Cooking, cleaning, helping with the stock." The voice was deep, but not harsh. Olivia closed her eyes and tried to remember a time when her father had looked at her with something other than disappointment. She could not. Her mother appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes were red. "Olivia, come. There's a man here to see you." The girl stood, her legs unsteady beneath her. She had known this day might come. Her father had been muttering about her being a burden for months, ever since the traveling doctor had examined her and pronounced her unfit for marriage. The word infertile had followed her through town like a shadow. Now it had a price. The rancher stood by the hearth, his hat in his hands. He was older than she had expected, maybe 40, with sun-browned skin and steady gray eyes. He wore a clean shirt and denim trousers held up by leather suspenders. When he looked at her, he did not stare at her body the way some men did. He met her eyes and nodded once. "You must be Olivia. I'm John. I've got a place about 3 hours north. It's not fancy, but it's dry and warm." Her father took the $5 bill from John's hand and folded it into his pocket without looking at her. "She's got a strong back when she puts her mind to it," he said. "Don't expect much else." Olivia felt her throat tighten. She wanted to say something, to demand why he was selling her like a calf at market, but the words would not come. She had learned long ago that speaking her mind only earned her a slap. John turned to her father. "I'd like a word with her alone, if you don't mind." Her father shrugged and stepped outside, the screen door banging behind him. John waited until the footsteps faded, then spoke quietly. "I know this is not how you imagined your life going. I know it's hard." He paused, turning his hat in his hands. "I lost my wife 3 years back. The place got too big for one person. I need help, but I also need company. I'm not looking for a servant, Olivia. I'm looking for a partner." She did not know what to say to that. Partner was not a word she had ever heard applied to herself. She was the extra mouth to feed, the girl who would never give a man sons, the disappointment that her father had to unload for whatever price he could get. But this man was looking at her like she might be something more. "Pack what you have," John said gently. "We'll leave within the hour." The walk to the wagon was the longest of her life. Her mother hugged her at the door, pressing a small cloth bundle into her hands. Inside was a piece of bread, a dried apple, and a worn photograph of her grandmother. "Write when you can," her mother whispered. "I'll pray for you every night." Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. She climbed onto the wagon seat beside John and did not look back as the cabin shrank behind them. The road wound through fields of wheat and past scattered homesteads. John did not push for conversation. He let the silence settle around them like a blanket. Olivia watched the landscape change from flat farmland to rolling hills dotted with oak trees. The air smelled different here, cleaner, with a hint of pine and damp earth. She pulled her shawl tighter and tried to imagine what her new home would look like. John pointed toward a cluster of buildings in the distance. "That's it. The house needs a woman's touch, I'll admit. I've been living on coffee and biscuits for too long." He said it with a small smile, and Olivia felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe he was not so different from her. Maybe he was lonely too. The wagon pulled into the yard as the last light faded from the sky. The house was made of timber, with a stone chimney and a porch that wrapped around the front. A barn stood to the right, its doors open, and Olivia could see the shapes of horses moving inside. John helped her down from the wagon, his hand steady on her arm. "Welcome home, Olivia," he said. "It's not much, but it's yours now, too." She stood in the yard, the cool evening air brushing her cheeks, and looked at the house that would be her home. She did not know what the future held. She did not know if the doctor had been right about her, but standing there, with the stars beginning to appear and the sound of crickets rising from the fields, She felt something she had not felt in years. She felt like she had a place in the world. As the days turned into weeks, Emily found herself growing more comfortable in her new surroundings. The rancher, John, had been kind to her, teaching her the ways of the ranch and showing her the ropes. She had learned to ride a horse, to milk a cow, and to tend to the chickens. But more than that, she had discovered a sense of purpose in her new life. She felt needed, and that feeling was a balm to her soul. The smell of fresh hay and the sound of birds chirping had become familiar to her, and she found solace in the simple, rustic life. John, too, had noticed the change in Emily. She was no longer the timid, frightened girl he had first met. She was blossoming, finding her own strengths and talents. He found himself looking forward to her smile, to her laughter, and to her quiet moments of determination. He had grown fond of her, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her accomplishments. As they worked together, side by side, John began to see Emily in a different light. He no longer thought of her as just a servant, but as a person, a woman with her own thoughts and feelings. "I'm proud of you, Emily," John said one day, as they were fixing a broken fence. "You're a natural with the animals, and you're getting better at riding every day." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. "Thank you, John. I couldn't have done it without your help." John smiled back, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "You're a quick learner. I think you'll make a fine rancher's wife one day." Emily's heart skipped a beat at the mention of being a rancher's wife, but she pushed the thought aside, not wanting to get her hopes up. As they worked together, John found himself wondering what Emily thought, what she felt, and what she wanted. He began to notice the way she moved, the way she smiled, and the way she laughed, and he found himself falling for her, deeply and irretrievably. He loved the way she bit her lip when she was concentrating, the way her hair fell in loose waves down her back, and the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed. But Emily was unsure if John felt the same way. She had seen the way he looked at her, the way he smiled when she was near, but she had also seen the way he pushed her away, the way he kept his distance. She didn't know what to make of it, and she was afraid to hope. She was afraid of being hurt again, of being rejected and alone. One day, as they were walking back to the house, John put his hand on her shoulder, and Emily felt a jolt of electricity run through her body. She looked up at him, and their eyes met, but John just smiled and said, "Let's get some dinner. I'm starving." Meanwhile, John's friends and family were surprised by the change in him. They had never seen him so happy, so carefree. They would come to visit, and they would find him laughing, smiling, and joking with Emily. They would see the way he looked at her, the way he touched her arm, and the way he helped her with her chores, and they would whisper to each other, "John's in love." His sister, Sarah, was the first to comment on it. "John, you're smitten," she said, as they were sitting down to dinner. "I've never seen you like this before." John just shrugged, trying to play it cool, but Sarah just laughed. "Don't try to deny it, John. We can all see it. You're head over heels in love with Emily." As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Emily and John grew closer and closer. They would sit together on the porch, watching the sunset and talking about their dreams. They would laugh together, and they would cry together, and they would find themselves falling deeper and deeper in love, until they couldn't imagine a life without each other. One evening, as they were sitting on the porch, John turned to Emily and said, "I'm glad you're here, Emily. I don't know what I would do without you." Emily's heart skipped a beat, and she looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm glad I'm here too, John," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As they sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle to life, they knew that they had found something special, something that would last a lifetime. The night air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, and the sound of crickets provided a soothing background noise. It was a moment of perfect peace, a moment that they would cherish forever. And as they sat there, wrapped in each other's presence, they knew that they would face whatever the future held, together. As the days turned into weeks, Emily began to notice a change within herself. At first, She thought it was just the result of a healthier diet and a more peaceful life on the ranch. But as her body started to undergo subtle transformations, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something more profound was happening. It wasn't until she missed her second monthly cycle that the truth began to dawn on her. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, Emily decided to confide in Rancher John, who had been nothing but kind and supportive since her arrival. She remembered the way he smiled at her, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners, and the way his voice sounded like a warm breeze on a summer day. The day they went into town to see the doctor was etched in Emily's memory forever. The old, kind-hearted physician, with his spectacles perched on the end of his nose, examined her with a gentle touch and a reassuring smile. As they sat in his office, the smell of old books and leather filling the air, the doctor's words were like a warm breeze on a summer day. "You're going to be a mother, my dear, and not just of one child, but of twins." The room seemed to spin, colors blending together in a kaleidoscope of joy and disbelief. Sold as infertile, the news was nothing short of a miracle. Emily felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at Rancher John. His face lit up like the morning sun, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. He took Emily's hands in his touch warm and comforting. "We're having twins," he whispered, his voice trembling with joy. In that moment, Emily felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. This man, this kind and gentle soul, was overjoyed at the prospect of building a life with her, of being a father to their children. As they walked out of the doctor's office, hand in hand, Emily felt the warm sun on her face, the wind rustling her hair, and the sound of birds singing in the distance. It was as if the whole world had come alive, and everything was full of promise and possibility. As the weeks turned into months, the ranch became a flurry of activity in preparation for the baby's arrival. Rancher John proposed to Emily under the shade of an old oak tree, the same spot where they had shared countless moments of laughter and companionship. With tears streaming down her face, Emily said yes. They were married in a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by the beauty of nature and the few people they had come to consider as friends. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers, and the sound of a gentle stream burbled in the background. Emily felt like a princess, her white dress shimmering in the sunlight, her hair adorned with a delicate veil. The day of the birth arrived, and with it, a sense of calm anticipation. Emily, with Rancher John by her side, brought their twins into the world. The first, a boy, was born with a strong cry, followed closely by his sister, who entered the world with a gentle whimper. As Emily held them in her arms, feeling their small hearts beat against her chest, she knew she had found her place in the world. She was no longer just a girl sold and resold. She was a mother, a wife, and a woman with a family that loved her. The room was filled with the sound of their baby's cries, the smell of fresh linen, and the warm glow of the sunlight streaming through the windows. Rancher John looked at her, his eyes filled with tears of joy, and whispered, "You're an amazing mother, Emily, and I promise I'll always be here for you and our children." In his arms, surrounded by the beauty of their ranch and the miracle of their twins, Emily finally felt home. She had found her happiness, her sense of belonging, and her love. As they gazed into the faces of their babies, they knew that their love story was only just beginning, filled with promise, joy, and the adventure of building a life together. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over their little family, Emily smiled, knowing she would never be alone again. The stars began to twinkle in the night sky, and the world seemed to slow down, as if savoring the beauty of this moment. Emily felt grateful. Grateful for this life, for this love, and for this family that had brought her so much joy.